also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it.
Yep.
We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change.
Do I need subtitles to understand this freaking
We
man?
find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $50 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing what any white student can do. They just have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing with the environment. He, out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord, I immediately joined it, because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money, because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones who was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs, because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage, I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people, but we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
That's right.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only
See
ones with
this?
consequence.
See
We're
what I'm
not-
freaking talking
we're not
about?
members of the
His,
Paris Accord.
his
How can we
noises.
do anything? We're not able
Sounds
to.
like
The
a
United States can't
forest
keep this
demon.
under control. One of the largest
I think
polluters in the
he
world.
is a forest
Number
demon
one.
in
We're
disguise.
making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people who learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements that cause the pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're gonna, I'm proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%. 1%. So no one after, I would not raise the cost of
Demons
Social Security
trying
for
to
anybody
escape.
under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent, but the biggest thing will do it if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare both times. And and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican
They're
caucus,
calling
that
him
I believe
the
supports,
Orange Man.
is in fact
They should
wants
call
to cut
him
it
the
as well.
Turtle Man.
The idea
Your
that
face looks like a
we don't
turtle.
need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, we're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they in fact are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where we talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants, another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 towards the tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen that he can look you in the face. So many,
Oh, look, he's gonna
so many other
cry.
things too.
He's gonna
And we
cry.
mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing. And it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden.
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all of these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our
Anyone's
jobs.
watching the
There's a reason why
stream,
we
comment
have the
something.
fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession. And inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put him there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He's the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We're the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody, number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up or go online. 159 or 58, don't know the exact number.
If anyone is watching this stream, please comment.
Who's the worst president in American
If anyone's watching this live stream, please comment. I'd like it. Thank you.
of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care, he did for virtually nothing with child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men, or single parents, to be able to go back to work, and we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President
child care
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have Poland, we have other things they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you, and they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best.
Okay,
I think I'll
let's
be the
wrap
best.
up, man.
Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff, he will increase the taxes on middle class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariff. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that are imported. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he is not raised, he somehow helped the middle class. The middle class has been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You have the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up,
Belcham says,
we
hey,
now have
man,
the
thanks for
largest
doing
deficit
this.
in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a
put caps
Manchurian
back on.
candidate. He gets money from China. We
Which
have,
one
so I
did
think there's
Biden
a
have?
thing
A
to do
chin
with them or
issue?
something. But notice he never took out my
Oh,
tariffs
man.
because we bring in
Oh,
so
man.
much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the
Next
worst,
level here.
the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
Right.
The President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well in addiction until the COVID came along. We had 2.5, almost 3 nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border where it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot. And we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and byproduct fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use a machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more being able to detect drugs, more numbers of
If anyone
agents,
is
more
watching
numbers
the stream,
all
please
people
comment.
border.
I'd love it.
And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues and said, "Don't."
All right, if anyone's watching the stream, please comment, and I'd love it.
It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. Now, President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made a catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for every time we say a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly, as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally, as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where he paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dan?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record, look at what I've done, look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. The whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and then bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call them, to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I've never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies and those who he calls up to, from Kim Jong Un, he sends love letters to, Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year, and we knock on wood wherever we may have wood. That I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior. 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace them.
Thank you. President Biden?
If anyone is watching this stream, please comment. I would love it.
35 pounds. Well, he said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, anyway, just take a look at what he says he is and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap when I was vice president down to a 6. But by the way, I told you, how can you play golf if you carry your own bag? Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie, that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap. 8. But I had,
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
Let's not act like children.
You are
a
a child.
specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. The only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III. Let him follow and win and let Putin say do what you want, and they don't. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all, and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland,
You can
Hungary,
answer
and
the
other
poll
places
if you
along
want.
that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked.
President Trump, the question was, will you accept the results of the election regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these. But the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There's no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accept anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate, live from Georgia.
Black writers. You have to kill me to get this jacket off. It's electrifying. Suicide.
Okay, so I'm gonna mute this right now because there's probably some copyrighted stuff. And yeah. So, like I said, if anyone is watching this stream, you can comment and or test out the poll, which is like, is Biden a creep poll on the thing. So, like I said, if anyone's watching, please comment. I would really appreciate it. And I'd love to hear from you guys. So, please comment. I'm sorry that there's ads and stuff, but that's just how it is on FTA television, free to air. And I have to mute it because I don't want to get copyright crap from all these commercials, because they're always using music and stuff. It's not just no normal commercial. Not like YouTube where you can skip them. Not like YouTube ads are any better. Yeah. Well, maybe because this one's like a medicine ad.
Living with type 2 diabetes?
That's about the power of 3 with Ozempic.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, with your home, auto, boat, and RV all bundled with Progressive, you've got the peace of mind to really wander.
Yeah, I just hope it stays this way. Once word gets out about these places, they tend to.
Are you done?
And there it is.
At least your vehicles are protected. Let's hit the road.
Hey fam, I am just at this beautiful lake that I just discovered, practicing gratitude, manifesting abundance.
Nice to meet you. My name's David. I've been a pharmacist for 44 years. When I have customers come in and ask for something for memory, I recommend Prevagen. Number one, because it's safe and effective, does not require a prescription. And I've been taking it quite a while myself, and I know it works. And I love it when the customers come back in and tell me, David, that really worked so good for me. Makes my day.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
Shopify helps you sell at every stage of your business. So you can sell it online, take it in person, and go big, like 1 million orders big. Whatever the stage, businesses that grow with Shopify.
Salonpas Lidocaine Flex, a super thin, flexible patch with maximum OTC strength lidocaine that contours to the body to relieve pain right where it hurts. And did we mention it really, really sticks? Salonpas, it's good medicine.
He saw me too.
Wow. I want us from America. I want a proud America.
I might show the address, so I don't wanna.
It is now time for the candidates to deliver their closing statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
We made significant
First off,
progress
before he talks, he
in the
starts
block of
crapping his
left
pants.
by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation
Maybe
where,
it's
number
fine. I
one,
don't know.
we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds
He's
himself in a
lying
position
so
where
much instead
he
of his
now wants
nose
to tax you
growing.
more.
His
That's
chin
10%
gets
tax
sucked
on everything that comes in the
his
United
skull.
States of America.
Look at that.
What I did, well, for example, he wants to get away with, get rid of the ability of Medicare
Screwed up in
to, for the ability to, for the us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it
Drug
we got it
prices.
down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior,
Alright,
no
this
matter
ain't
what how much
psychopathy.
prescription they need. You know what that did? That
But I will
reduced
if I
the
want
federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior. All along, it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits that people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do all he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations and gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like. Even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get, when you're terminally ill, now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
And so the first presidential debate of the 2024 election season is in the books. As you witnessed, President Biden opening this debate and continuing with a very shaky voice, a raspy voice that we have learned from advisors close to him that apparently he's had a cold for the past several days. But he also had a number of wandering answers during this debate. He had a number of facts and accomplishments that he wanted to touted, but I think his voice and sometimes was distracting from that. President Trump offered repeated lies and exaggerations, but then President Biden failed to fact check Trump most of the time. We've got our entire panel here tonight to discuss what we witnessed. John Dickerson, I'll start with you.
For the majority of Americans who don't want this choice, the debate met those expectations. I think you characterized it correctly. What we heard about President Biden is people who know him said, when he was underestimated in the 2020 campaign, people said, look to his convention speech and he exceeded expectations. They said, look to his State of the Union addresses when he exceeded expectations. On the debate stage, he came in well under expectations, both as a matter of performance and as arguing for why his vision for the future is better. As you mentioned, Donald Trump gave fantastical, delusional answers on January 6th, on Charlottesville, on what he said about the theft of the last election, and that matters because he's trying to convince people who saw things with their own eyes that what they saw was not so. And part of being president is seeing things clearly. So how the voters will make something of this, I'm not sure, but for President Biden, who had the behavioral challenge tonight, that's the theatrical challenge, he did not perform as I should think any of his supporters would think.
I agree, John. If he was supposed to comfort people who were concerned about his age and his ability, that did not happen tonight. They said that he had a cold, so he was very hoarse. But many times his answers were very meandering, and a couple of times you're like, what did he just say? Mm-hmm. No, that happened on both sides. That happened on both sides. And to your point about Donald Trump, who many believe is often very loose with the truth, when he isn't fact checked, but he speaks with such confidence, and he is is so sure of himself, he seemed to at least seemed to know what he was talking about. And if you don't know the facts, you think, well, he's making a lot of sense. It's only when you're familiar with the issues that you know, well, that's not true, and that's not true.
But you know what? The things that stood out to me, Gail, is the content and the substance was very familiar, because most of what Donald Trump said there was not new. Any rally, he hits most of those greatest hits and those talking points. They could have been fact-checked quickly. For President Biden, some of the things we talked about, the importance of abortion in particular for Democrats, he stumbled on his answer. And it wasn't just meandering. Joe Biden stumbled on his answer. He started talking about abortion and then said something about being raped by your sister. He went from the very key issue of abortion, something about the border and a recent death of a 12-year-old girl allegedly at the hands of a migrant. So he took himself into an issue that is not a strength for him, the very real border crisis in this country. He also seemed to lose his point a few times on the issue of foreign policy, which he is so proud of. He took Donald Trump to a weakness, which was referring to that deadly day in 2021 with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, one of the single deadliest days for U.S. troops in that entire 20-year war, and said, no soldiers died on my watch. 13 service people died. So it was as if some parts of this were memorized and then the points were lost. And for Donald Trump, there was no policy to back up.
But what about Trump's missteps and lies? He said, I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. That is not true. That is a signature accomplishment by the Biden.
The price caps.
The price caps, misleading.
He refused to commit to accepting the results of the election as well.
Right. Trump said also at one point that the January 6th insurrectionists were ushered into the Capitol, when we have all seen the truth that, of course, and many of them have been charged and convicted and are now in jail for actually beating up law enforcement in order to break through and get into the U.S. Capitol.
I was fascinated by his comment about the migrants who are taking the black jobs and the Hispanic jobs, and I'm sitting here trying to think, what is a black job? Donald Trump, yes. Donald Trump. And what is a black job and what is a Hispanic job?
Well, and the widespread frustration when Democrats were watching this tonight, in the words of one of them, they said, look, we win on the issues, this Democrat said, but our guy can't hit on the issues. He has one significant problem, his age. And tonight made it worse.
And who said that?
This was a senior Midwestern Democrat watching this tonight, like many Democrats, freaked out by the first 7 minutes.
You mean a senior like in age, or someone who's an elected official?
Someone who works with elected officials and has worked on several Democratic campaigns. And this is widespread. Talking to Democrats tonight, they believe the first 7 minutes, probably the worst 7 minutes of the Biden presidency, but that he was able to recover over the course of this by hitting Trump on abortion, on the issue of democracy on January 6th, on calling out the fact that he wouldn't stay in NATO, and then this wild exchange at the end about golf handicaps. And
the most significant exchange between the two candidates
was over their golf.
Was over their golf records and their swing. I mean, talk about America deserves a fair hearing.
And we had no detailed answers on.
That was the most extensive back and forth the two had. It wasn't Social Security and Medicare.
Let's bring in Robert Costa, who has been talking to officials in both campaigns with reaction to tonight's debate. Robert?
Good to be with you, Nora. They're piling into this so-called spin room here in Atlanta right now. All of the Trump campaign officials. I just saw Dr. Ben Carson, Senator Marco Rubio, and many others. And talking to top Trump campaign officials over the past hour, they feel confident about this debate. They feel that former President Trump was able to make claim after claim without much pushback from the moderators or from President Biden. But there is some private concern among some Trump sources that can they answer this question in a positive way for Trump? Did he expand his coalition tonight? Yes, he roused his base. Yes, he kept his temperament contained, didn't interrupt a lot. But was he able to reach those core voters who still might be on the fence about him? To build on Margaret's point and others, the exchange on abortion rights seen as a key one. Is that going to drive Democratic turnout or not? But for now, in the immediate aftermath, the Trump campaign feeling good, but so are Biden campaign sources, because they said he's steady. Yes, he is 81 years old, but he was able to hit his marks in their view time and again.
Robert Costa, thank you. I want to turn to Nancy Cordes, who has been speaking with officials in the Biden campaign. And Nancy, I think the first thing that many people witnessed in watching this debate was President Biden's shaky, hoarse voice. What's wrong with him?
Retard.
Well, Nora, we only found out what's wrong with him about
Freaking retard.
halfway through the debate. We
Why?
started asking right away. As soon as he took the stage, as soon as he opened his mouth and started speaking, he obviously sounded raspy. And so I started firing off texts to various Biden campaign officials, what's wrong with him, and got radio silence. One person said, well, maybe he just needs
Thing is
to warm
wrong
up.
with him, he
And then
don't got
about
no
45
brain
minutes in,
cells.
a slew
Man
of
don't got no
responses from
brain
White
cells.
House and
That's what's wrong
Biden
with him.
campaign officials saying, yes, he has had a cold for the past few days. He was
running off of
examined by
BP
his personal
gasoline.
doctor, Kevin O'Connor, at Camp David. He tested negative for COVID, but he does have a cold, and that's why he is raspy. But that really begs the question, Nora, why they didn't let people know beforehand to sort of set
That is not why
expectations
he's raspy. He's
among the
freaking
audience so
stupid. That's
people
why.
weren't taken by surprise, particularly when so many voters already have concerns about his age, about his stamina. I asked all those White House officials after they confirmed that he was sick why they hadn't said anything in advance. Nobody answered.
You know, Nancy, so much of the reporting that you have done all week on the evening news is that, you know, the Trump supporters, including the former president, said that Biden would be jacked up on drugs for this debate, but he really sounded like he needed some cold medicine to take before this whole event so that he could make some of his points. It was difficult to even hear him on some of the exchanges. Nancy Cordes, thank you. And ahead, our own chief Washington correspondent, Major Garrett, is going to fact check some of the candidates' claims tonight. I know we're talking a lot about style, but there was also a lot of substance. And why didn't the candidates talk more about the future? You're watching CBS News.
If you have generalized myasthenia gravis, picture what life could look like with Vyvgart Hytrulo.